Carpe Opticus. This is the new INFITAC IOL25. It is a 2x native magnification 384 resolution thermal weapon sight that has what I think are some fairly impressive specs for an entry-level optic.
All right, before we go any further, there are a few things that I want to cover first about how this review came to be and what else is going on behind the scenes. First of all, I am using notes. They are behind the camera, so you'll see me looking up from time to time to reference the notes. I need the notes to help stay on track. My apologies for using notes. I was contacted a couple of months ago by INFITAC saying, hey, we've got a new scope. Would you be interested in reviewing and commenting on it? And I said, sure, that sounds good. And they said, well, we've got some requirements. We need you to do an 8-minute video, at least an 8-minute video. We need you to cover all the major features of the scope. We need you to show the scope in use in the field. And I said, hey, I can do all those things. That sounds perfect. And they said, well, we've got a time frame. And I said, yes, I can make the time frame. That time frame got expanded some, but and there's a reason why for that. But it all worked out, and so they said, hey, we'll provide you compensation for the scope. And so full disclosure, I accepted the compensation for doing the review. You can read into that what you will. We all have biases. I don't think I'm being financially biased for this review. However, I do have my own personal biases, and part of the reason why I like the scope so much is because it fits my personal biases, and I'll talk more about that later. So I received the optic, I got it into the field, got some hogs down, and I noticed there were some things that were kind of quirky with the scope, and I brought those up to INFITAC, and I sent them a list of things saying, you know, this, and this. And they said, thank you very much, we'll take a look at it. And I get contacted a couple days later and said, okay, you know, on number 1, and number 2, we've identified the problem. Number 1, we've already got a solution for it. It's a firmware fix, and that's already done. And on number 3, we're still working on that. We've identified the problem, but we're looking for a solution. And then a couple days later, we found the solution. And a couple days after that, yeah, everything's good to go. So what I'm telling you is that during the course of this video and the next couple videos, you're going to see that there's some things going on with the scope that may not be quite right. Those have been fixed, and I will point them out in the video. But know that the units that are going on for sale aren't going to have these issues because they've already been taken care of, which is terrific. So what would I like you to get out of this review? Let me give you the short overview, and you can see if you want to go any further. I like the scope. It is a very nifty little optic. It is super easy to use. Now, I have a lot of experience using different types of optics and understanding how the firmware works. And if you're a first-time buyer, this scope is going to be a good scope for you. You're still going to want to read the manual. For people that have already had scopes, they're going to be able to take it out and do what I did, pop a battery in it, and start going through the buttons, figuring out how everything works, and in short order, understand how the scope operates. If you have to read the manual, it's no big deal. It doesn't take very long. It's a fairly easy manual, and it's a fairly easy scope to operate. What makes it so easy? There's not too many controls, and it's a fixed focus scope, which I think is terrific. My old IR Hunter from Trigicon was a fixed focus scope, and I used it for years. The nice thing about fixed focus is that everything is either in focus, it's either pretty good focus, or it's excellent focus, or it's not in focus because it's far too close. INFITAC says that this scope has a 5-yard minimum focus distance. I would say it's probably closer to 10 yards for, you know, a good image, but not many of us are doing a whole lot of hunting inside 5 or 10 yards. I mean, that's really, really short range, so that's a non-issue. After that, then your only limiting factor is the resolution, as to how far the animals actually stay clear enough to identify and to shoot. And the other thing I really liked about the scope is that it's non-proprietary in terms of the power source. You don't have to buy any $100 batteries for it. You can get simple 18650 batteries. It comes with 2, but you can get simple 18650 batteries with it and pop them in and you're good to go. All right, let's take a look at the scope.
As I said earlier, I thought this was a nifty little scope, and it is. It only comes in at 18.3 ounces, and as you can see, it's quite small in size. Let's take a look at some of the external features, starting with the lens cap. Lens cap is fairly heavy duty. It folds back and it locks into position so it's not flopping around on you. You've got a top turret that holds the 18650 battery. The battery is easily removed. You don't need to tilt the scope in order to get the battery out of it, which is terrific. It comes with two of the 18650 batteries. It comes with two caps for them, one for flat tops and one for button top batteries. And just a note, the top turret is not tethered. That's because you can change out the caps. Now, earlier when I said that the scope was easy to use and that the controls were easy to use, I wasn't kidding. And the reason why for this is because of this thing that they call the menu button or rotary encoder. It is both a button and it spins like a wheel. And depending upon what you do with it, it does all sorts of different functions. Most buttons on thermal scopes will do one thing with a short press and they'll do something else with a long press. In this case, with a long press, it takes you into the menu system for what I consider to be all of the secondary functions, things that you don't need when you're actually on animals, things that you don't need to be monkeying with. You don't need to go into your zero settings. You shouldn't be changing brightness or contrast, if the animals are right in front of you. That's something that probably should have been done before the hunt. Now, once in the menu system, turning the wheel will take you through the various selections, and when you find what you want, you just quick press the button again, and that will make the selection. It's a nifty process, and I like the way that it works. Outside of the menu system, say you're out hunting, what does the menu button do for you? A short press of it will nuke the image. Nuking means it recalibrates the image. I strongly suggest people run their scopes, their weapon sights on manual nuking because I find that manual nuking means that your shots are never being interrupted by the automatic nuke, and the automatic nuke happens when the scope determines that the image has degraded so far that it needs to recalibrate the image. And I find that visually it needs to be recalibrated a lot less than the system usually thinks it does, and that's across the board for most thermal scopes. So I run everything on manual simply because I think it's safer. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox now about that. So what does spinning the wheel do when you're not in the menu system? Well, that is your zoom wheels. That will take you through all the zoom settings. And what I like about this is that you have backwards and forward zoom. You can zoom through the 4 levels. And if you zoom past level 4, it'll take you back to level 1, or you can zoom back and forth between level 2 and 3. You can do 2 and back to 3 and back to 2. It's just handy dandy to use. Moving on, you have 2 other primary controls. One is the photo and video button that's on the right hand side, and for people like me that's a very important button. And then on the left hand side you have the power and standby buttons, and that pretty well covers it for the controls that you use very often. After that, you have the focus ring for the near eye display, and once you set that up you probably won't ever adjust it again. Moving back from the focus ring, I have a zip tie tied around the shuttered eye cup. For all of the eye cups that don't screw into scopes, I use a zip tie around them just to help them be secure. I don't know that it's necessary on this scope, but I'm using it anyway so that I don't lose the eye cup somewhere in the field. And next you have the shuttered eye cup. What is a shuttered eye cup? That just means that when your eye isn't pressed against the eye cup, there's a shutter inside of it that closes and blocks off any light, keeps the light from escaping from the scope out into the environment. Now, some people don't like to use eye cups and they don't like shuttered eye cups. You can take it off. And if you're worried about the light escaping, such as when you're making your stalk, you're making your approach on hogs, you can just put it in the standby mode until you get onto the hogs. Anyway, I like the shuttered eye cup. It works very well on this unit. It's a little bit stiff, but it breaks in with time. Moving around to the front of the scope, we have the kill flash, and now this is a removable feature. That honeycomb that you see is the kill flash. I know of 2 reasons to have a kill flash on an optic. In the military, they're used to help prevent the glint of light from reflecting off the scope from being seen by the enemy, and the secondary feature is that it provides protection for the lens from foreign objects. I know paintballers like them on their optics because it protects the lens from being directly struck by paintballs. So it's a neat feature. You may or may not want to use it. It is removable if you don't want to use it. And here on the right hand side of the scope you have the offset mount for a red dot sight. It is removable. Farther forward on the right turret, it covers the Type-C USB port. You can download videos from here, or you can run the scope with an external power supply. And last is the mount. It is a quick detach mount, and if you'll notice, it's located forward on the scope, which means you can bring the eye cup of the scope further back, And that means, I think it means, that this should be well suited for use on bolt action rifles. I don't have one to try it out on it this time, but it looks like it's going to be just fine for bolt action rifles as well as rifles such as the AR-15 that I am using. Well, about 4 hours after receiving the scope, here I am in the field not having read the manual and trying to get video, and I'm narrating everything that I'm seeing, and I don't have the microphone turned on, and I don't know to turn the microphone on because I haven't read the manual. I figured that out fairly quickly, and that gets corrected on the next evening. Anyway, we've got a deer and kite out there about 240 to 260 yards. This is a well-groomed field, and then we have a coyote coming in the distance at about 500 plus yards. And from this point, I was liking the image of this little 384 resolution thermal weapon sight. My first glimpse of hogs with this sight came when I was on the property across the road from the property that we're looking at. The furthest hogs are out there at about 225 yards. I did make an attempt on the hogs. I had to leave this property, drive around to the other property, and by the time I got over there, they had spooked and had taken off. Next time out, mounted it on a rifle.
Alright, we're going to be at 50 yards. Going to start with the first shot.
You can hear the distortion in my voice, and the sound will cut out with the rifle shot. That is because the gain was turned up too high. I reported it, and they said they've corrected the problem.
Brass Catcher by Tactical Brass Recovery.
Alright, we've got a hit. We'll go see where and see how much we need to move the crosshairs. Alright, the shot was low and right, so we're going to try to adjust the crosshairs.
I'm going to fast forward through this part because I was fumbling through the menu system looking at the icons without reading the labels, so that's on me. Anyway, I was getting into the 0 settings when this happened.
Oh, that's not good.
As you can see, the image started strobing, and while that was annoying, I was still able to correct the 0 and get the rifle ready to hunt. I later reported the problem to INFITAC, and this turned out to be a simple software glitch that has been rectified. Finally, Carpe Sus! I am on hogs with the INFITAC IOL25. Got hogs coming in from the neighbor property, coming into a very unkempt field that is occluding all of my view. There I'm assessing the downrange dangers, which happen to be deer. Winds are coming in from the right. Humidity's not too high. So I'm in a good position right where I am. I don't need to move. I'm actually at a fence line, a cross fence, so I can't move forward any further. Alright, here we go. A little far back on that shot, and I'm going to pick her up on the run. And she goes down. And I thought I had dropped the hog right there, but it actually ran into a ditch like this one did. And you'll see the hog that I was shooting at previously come running in from the right, and both of those get off property. So quick quality assurance shot to finish her off. And I don't have any other targets. And here I do a final scan, and you have to watch really closely because I passed by hogs. I completely missed them at the time. So when I go to pick up this hog and look for the others, I'm going to be coming in from the right and shooting in this direction back towards the left. And that's where I am right here. I've spied live hogs. I've gotten out of the truck. And they were right next to the dead female. I dropped that one with that shot, and I dropped the next one right here. And I give it a quick quality assurance shot, just to make sure that it stays down. No more targets, and for this hunt, I came away with a 135-pound sow that was pregnant with 5 on board, a 40-pound male shote, and a 35-pound male shote. There are the 5 on board. And the last hog of this first night of hunting with the INFITAC IOL25 turned out to be a boar. He was right by the gate when I pulled into the gate, and as I got out of the truck, he took off running out into the field. I was initially set up on the wire of the fence, and I decided that wasn't steady enough, so I moved to a fence post. Alright, here we go. One shot, and down he goes. If given a choice, take the fence post over the fence wire. This board turned out to be 175 pounds. After 2 nights out with this scope, what are my thoughts on it? Well, let's start with the likes. Overall, the size, shape, and weight I think are absolutely terrific. It's just compact overall. I don't know any reason to not like a scope in this configuration. In general, I like the whole operating system. I thought everything is oriented in a logical manner. I like the simplicity of the controls. In short, I thought it was very ergonomic both mentally and physically. And of course, again, I'm going to mention the 18650 batteries. I think it's great that that's what they're using. I like the fact that you can use both button tops and flat tops. Either one comes with 2 caps. You're good to go. As for the dislikes, most of mine went away with the things that are being fixed by INFITAC. Otherwise, the kill flash. I'm not a big fan of the kill flash because it slightly degrades the image quality. However, it is removable, so it doesn't have to be a problem. The red dot mount conflicts with the right hand operation of the photo video button. I have trouble reaching around with my index finger and pressing the button when I need to. I kind of go over to the top where I use my left hand. The left hand is a viable alternative. I suppose the problem will be even worse if you had a red dot mounted on top of it. However, as I said, you can use your left hand or you can just unscrew the mount and not have it in the way. Lastly, in using the contrast control and going through the scale of contrast, I have decided that I think I would like it if the contrast had a little bit less contrast on the lower end of the scale. I find myself using the scope at a 0 or a 1 setting, and I'm never going up, past 2, and I could probably use a -1 or a -2. Minor overall, but it's something I don't like. Lastly, I'd like to acknowledge that you may have noticed that there was an uncommanded zoom in this video. Watch right here. And that was because there was a problem with the switch in the menu selector wheel, and this is something that has been rectified, but you'll see that in this video. And you're also going to see it in an upcoming video.
So for those of you that noticed the uncommanded zoom that happened under recoil, I thought I owed you an explanation, and for those of you that were going to notice it next time, I thought I would tell you about it in advance. Now I've got 3 more videos coming up featuring the IOL25. I'll be taking hogs at up to 225 yards and coyotes at 150 and 175 yards. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Carpe sus, my friends.
Carpe sus, my friends.